Memorial service is underway this afternoon to mark the 70th anniversary of the worst civilian disaster of the Second World War. 173 people died in a crush at Bethnal Green Tube Station in East London. They were trying to shelter from an air raid, which then turned out to be a false alarm. Andrew Plant joins us now from outside today's service in Bethnal Green. Andrew.
Yeah, this was one of the biggest losses of civilian life during the entire Second World War. 173 people killed here on the steps of Bethnal Green Tube Station, not by German bombs, but by a crush of human bodies trying to escape what they thought was a German air raid. It turned out to be a false alarm. Now, for decades, it was barely remembered, but now the families of victims and the survivors are one step closer to having a permanent memorial here.
In the air raids of World War II, the tunnels of Bethnal Green Tube provided shelter for thousands of Londoners on dozens of occasions. But on the 3rd of March 1943, this place of safety became the scene of a terrible civilian disaster. As sirens sounded out the air raid alarm, hundreds of people flowed towards these steps. But as one lost their footing, those following began to tumble. Not killed by bombs, but crushed to death under an unstoppable wave of human bodies. 173 died, 62 of them children. The sirens later turned out to be a false alarm. Fears that the disaster would damage wartime morale meant reporting was censored. It was only 50 years later that the event was finally commemorated with this small plaque. Survivors, though, have returned every year to lay flowers. This was the largest loss of life in one incident during World War II. Far more lives than any one German bomb ever managed to claim. Suffocated in just seconds as they tried to find a place of safety.
Well, we're joined now by Toby Butler from the University of East London. Toby, thanks for joining us. You're developing a project into this, aren't you? Just explain to us, why wasn't this remembered properly at the time?
Well, this was an incredibly significant disaster. I mean, if you compare it to, say, Hillsborough or even to Aberfan, this disaster actually had more victims, and it's a real kind of puzzle as to why this wasn't memorialised or marked in some way before now. In 1993, they put up a plaque actually in the underground station itself.
But it took them 50 years to do that.
Well, that's right, yes. So this begs the question as to why. Now, I mean, partly it's because there was a kind of cover-up, you could say. There was an official government report into this, which actually got suppressed at cabinet level by Herbert Morrison and indeed by Churchill. We've got to remember, of course, this was wartime, and there were concerns about morale and so on. But really, in this community, it was, of course, widely known, but it wasn't really talked about very much. And I think partly it's just to do with the trauma of this appalling event, where so many people got crushed, and the survivors themselves, some of them haven't been able to speak about it until the last few days or years. It's just too unpleasant for them to kind of come back to. So I think that is very much at the key of it.
In the last few years, though, there has been an ongoing campaign to get this remembered properly, to get rid of that plaque and have something a bit more permanent, something like this. Just explain that to us.
Well, yes, that's right. A young architect saw this plaque at the tube station and was very confused as to why there wasn't a decent memorial, and he wrote into the local newspaper, and his sketches were put in the paper. As a result of that, a whole charity came up, was established, made by the survivors themselves, and they raised over £300,000 to build the memorial that's here now. They're desperately trying to raise the last 130,000, which we need for the canopy, which is going to have 173 holes where sunlight will come down, and the canopy itself is in the shape of the steps where they died. So it's going to be incredible, but we just need to last push now to raise that money, and also we're doing a big history project to capture some of the memories of the people that are here today.
And people can get in touch with you through the University of East London if they've got memories related to this.
Yes, that's right.
That way.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Toby, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
The service is going on in the church just over the road at the moment. Lots of survivors still alive there at the moment, and they tell me they are hoping to get this memorial here finished sometime this year.
Thank you.